The Great Hall of the Galactic Assembly was the largest structure ever built by living beings. Its walls stretched so high that clouds formed near the ceiling. Its floor could hold 1,000,000 creatures from 1,000 different worlds. Today, representatives from across the galaxy had gathered to witness something they found very amusing. The arrival of humanity's last survivors, Admiral Park. Do-Hyun walked through the massive doors with his head held high. He was 60 years old, with gray hair and deep lines on his face that told stories of pain and loss. Behind him walked 12 crew members, all that remained of Earth's once great space fleet. They wore patched uniforms and carried themselves with quiet dignity. Through the crystal windows of the hall, everyone could see the human ship floating in space. The Eternal Dawn was not impressive to look at. Its hull was covered in repair patches of different colors. Its engines were old and mismatched. Compared to the beautiful warships of the other species, it looked like a piece of garbage floating in the void. Ambassador Torval of the Valorian Empire was the first to laugh. He was a tall creature with shiny black skin and large eyes that reflected light like mirrors. His mouth opened wide, showing rows of small teeth as he made clicking sounds of amusement. This is what remains of humanity. Torval asked loudly so everyone could hear. One ship? One broken, ugly little ship. The laughter spread through the assembly like a wave. Creatures of all shapes and sizes joined in. Some had tentacles. Some had wings. Some were made of living crystal. But they all shared one thing. They thought the humans were a joke. Lieutenant Yunhana stood behind the Admiral, her hands squeezed into tight fists. She was 32 years old, with short black hair and eyes that burned with hidden fire. As the chief engineer of the Eternal Dawn, she had spent 3 years rebuilding that ship from broken pieces while her home planet died. Every metal plate on that vessel had been welded with her own hands. Every wire had been connected while she cried for her lost family. The laughter hurt more than she expected, but she did not show it on her face. Admiral Park waited for the noise to die down. He did not react to the mockery. He had seen too much death to care about the opinions of those who had never faced true darkness. "We did not come here to beg for help," Park said. His voice was calm and clear. "We came to give you a warning." This made the aliens laugh even harder. Ambassador Torval wiped tears of amusement from his large eyes. "A warning? From you?" He gestured toward the window where the Eternal Dawn floated. "The Harvesters destroyed your entire plan in 17 hours. Your colonies fell in days. Your species is almost extinct. What could you possibly warn us about?" Park did not look away from Torval's mocking gaze. "The Harvesters are coming here next. And when they arrive, you will finally understand something important about humanity. And what is that? We do not surrender. We do not give up. And we do not forget." Torval waved his hand dismissively. "Pretty words from a dead species. The Harvesters have been destroying civilizations for 10,000 years. They cannot be stopped. Everyone knows this. The smart thing to do is stay out of their path and let them eat whatever worlds they want." "You watch them eat our world," Park said quietly. "You could have helped us. You chose to do nothing. Why would we risk ourselves for primitives?" Torval asked. "Humans have barely left their own solar system. You were children playing with fire. The Harvesters simply cleaned up the mess." More laughter. More clicking and howling and strange sounds of alien amusement dot in the back of the hall. One figure did not laugh. Grand Scholar Elith of the Neutral Archives was very old, even by the standards of her long-lived species. Her body was thin and gray, covered in soft wrinkles that held thousands of years of memory. She had been tasked with recording the history of the galaxy since before most of these species had learned to build fire. She watched the humans with great interest. Something about them was different. Something in the way they stood, the way they breathed, the way their eyes moved. These were not broken refugees begging for scraps. These were survivors who had walked through hell and come out the other side with something dangerous in their hearts. The assembly voted to deny the humans any assistance. No fuel, no food, no medicine, no shelter. The vote was nearly unanimous. Only the neutral archives abstained, as they always did. "You have 40 hours to leave our space," Torval announced with a satisfied smile. "After that, we will destroy your little ship and end the embarrassment of humanity once and for all." Admiral Park nodded slowly. 40 hours. I understand. As the human delegation was led out of the hall, Grand Scholar Illith moved to intercept them. She found Lieutenant Yoon in a side corridor, standing alone while the others walked ahead. "Young one," Illith said softly, "may I speak with you?" Hana stopped and looked at the ancient creature. "What do you want?" "I have been watching civilizations rise and fall for a very long time. I have seen the proud brought low and the weak become strong. I have recorded the deaths of 100 species at the hands of the harvesters." Illith paused. "But I have never seen anyone look the way your admiral looked in there." "How did he look?" "Like someone who knows a secret. A terrible, wonderful secret that will change everything." Illith moved closer. "Your ship. It is not what it appears to be, is it?" Hannah was quiet for a long moment. Behind her eyes, memories played like a sad movie. Her mother's garden in Bizan full of flowers that would never bloom again. Her father's workshop, where he had taught her to fix machines with patience and love. Her little brother's laugh, silenced forever when the harvesters came. "No," Hannah finally said. "It is not what it appears to be. What is it, Ben?" Hannah looked at the old scholar with eyes that held no more tears. Only a cold and patient fire. "It is the last mistake the harvesters will ever make." She walked away without another word, leaving Illith alone in the corridor. The ancient scholar stood there for a long time, thinking about what she had seen and heard in all her years. She had learned one important truth. The most dangerous creatures in the universe were not the ones with the biggest ships or the strongest weapons. The most dangerous creatures were the ones who had lost everything and had nothing left to fear. Humanity had lost everything. Their planet, their people, their place in the galaxy. They had been mocked and abandoned and left to die in the cold void of space dawn, and yet they did not seem afraid. Illith looked out a window at the eternal dawn, floating alone against the stars. Such a small ship. Such a broken, ugly, insignificant ship. But somewhere in her ancient heart, she felt something she had not felt in centuries. Fear. She was afraid of that little ship. Afraid of what it might contain. Afraid of what those desperate humans might have built in the darkness of their despair. The galaxy had laughed at humanity's last ship, Grand. Scholar Illith had a feeling that very soon, no one would be laughing anymore. Deep inside the eternal dawn, past the sleeping quarters and the medical bay and the engine room, there was a door that did not appear on any map. Behind this door was a chamber that officially did not exist. And inside this chamber, Captain Choi Sunwoo stood watching the most powerful weapon ever created by human hands. The stellar conversion core glowed with soft blue light. It was not very large, maybe the size of a small car, but the energy contained within it was enough to shake the foundations of the universe itself. "Status report," Sunwoo said. Ensign Bi Chi-Yang looked up from her control station. She was only 23 years old, the youngest member of the crew. Her fingers moved across glowing screens that showed data no alien scientist could understand. "Stellar conversion at 92% capacity," she reported. "The core is stable. All systems are ready for activation." Sunwoo nodded but did not smile. He was a serious man of 45, with a soldier's posture and a scientist's careful eyes. He had been a weapons researcher before the harvesters came. Now he was something else entirely. He was the keeper of humanity's darkest secret and brightest hope. The weapon had been born from desperation. When the harvesters attacked Earth, nothing could stop them. Nuclear missiles exploded against their shields like fireworks, pretty but useless. The orbital defense stations, which humanity had been so proud of, were swatted away like annoying insects in Seoul. As the city burned and crumbled, a brilliant physicist named Dr. Nam Yoonji had made one final discovery. She was trapped in her laboratory with fire closing in from all sides. She knew she would die, but before the flames took her, she transmitted her last work to the fleeing human ships. The transmission contained equations that should have been impossible. A way to reach into the heart of a star and make it do something it was never meant to do. A way to focus the fury of a sun into a weapon. When Sunwoo first received the equations, he thought they were madness. The dream of a dying woman, nothing more. But he studied them anyway, because he had nothing else left. And slowly, he began to understand. Stars were not just balls of burning gas. They were engines of creation, furnaces of gravity and pressure, where atoms were crushed together to make light. And with the right push, at the right moment, in the right place, a star could be made to reach out and touch something far away. A controlled solar flare, a finger of stellar fire, a weapon hot enough to burn through anything in the universe. Building it had taken 3 years. 3 years of hiding from the galaxy. 3 years of salvaging parts from dead ships and abandoned stations. 3 years of watching the harvesters eat world after world while the 3 years of wild other species did nothing. 3 years of grief turned into purpose. Admiral Park entered the secret chamber, his footsteps echoing in the quiet space. He looked at the glowing core with an expression that mixed pride and sorrow. The Valorians have officially denied us resupply, he told Sunwoo. The Kryn say they will destroy us if we do not leave their space within 40 hours. They will change their minds, Sunwoo said, when the harvesters come. And if the harvesters do not come in time, Sunwoo pulled up a holographic map of the galaxy. A red line showed the path of the harvesters, marking every world they had consumed. The line cut through space like a scar, passing through regions that had once held thriving civilizations. They will come, Sunwoo said. They always come. The harvesters are not random. They follow a pattern, and this sector is next on their path. Park studied the map. How long? Based on their usual speed, 3 days, maybe 4. Then we wait. In another part of the ship, Lieutenant Yoon-hana sat alone in her small quarters. The room was barely big enough for a bed and a desk, but she had made it her home. On the desk sat a small memorial shrine that she had built herself. There were photographs. Her mother, smiling in her garden surrounded by roses. Her father, covered in grease from his workshop, holding up a repaired radio with pride. Her little brother, making a silly face at the camera. Her grandmother, sitting in her favorite chair with a cup of tea. All gone now. All turned to ash when the harvesters burned Korea. Next to the photographs was a small glass container. Inside, it was a single pressed flower, a rose from her mother's garden. It was the only physical object that remained of her home. She had grabbed it while running to the evacuation shuttle, not even thinking about what she was doing. It was instinct. A piece of home to carry into the darkness. We are almost ready, Hana whispered to the photographs. Soon, I will make them pay for what they did to you. To all of you. She touched the glass container gently. The rose inside was perfectly preserved, its red color still bright after all these years. The galaxy thinks we are broken. They think we are weak. They laugh at our ship and call us primitives. Her voice grew harder. They do not know what we have built. They do not know what we are capable of. She thought about the secret chamber and the weapon it contained. She thought about the equations that Dr. Nam had sent with her dying breath. She thought about the power to make stars themselves burn for humanity. The aliens watch the harvesters eat worlds, and they do nothing, she continued. They think if they stay quiet and small, the monsters will pass them by. They are cowards, all of them. The photographs did not answer. They never did. But talking to them helped Hannah remember why she kept going. Why she spent 18 hours a day maintaining the ship's systems. Why she had not given up when giving up would have been so easy. Humanity does not hide from monsters, she said. We fight them, and if we cannot win, we make sure they remember us. We make sure they bleed. On the bridge, Commander Ko Yuri was reviewing the ship's systems. She was second in command, a calm woman of 50 who had been a naval officer on Earth before the evacuation. Her job was to keep the crew focused and functional, which was not easy when everyone had lost everything they loved. Energy reserves at 60%, she noted in her log. Food supplies for another 2 weeks. Water recycling systems operating at acceptable levels. Medical supplies low but manageable. She paused and looked out the main window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the harvesters were moving. Giant machines of destruction that ate worlds and left nothing behind. No one knew where they came from. No one knew why they did what they did. They simply appeared, consumed, and moved on. The galaxy had learned to live with them the way ancient humans had learned to live with earthquakes or hurricanes. Natural disasters that could not be stopped, only avoided. But humanity refused to accept this. Humanity looked at the hurricane and said, "We will make you bleed." It was madness. Beautiful, terrible, wonderful madness. Ko Yuri smiled slightly. She had served with Admiral Park for 15 years. She had watched him lose his wife and children when the harvesters came. She had seen his grief turn into something cold and sharp and dangerous. The other species did not understand humans. They saw a small population on a single ship and assumed weakness. They did not know that humanity's greatest strength had nothing to do with numbers or technology. Humanity's greatest strength was spite, pure, burning, eternal spite. The harvesters had taken everything from them. So humanity would take something from the harvesters, even if it cost them their last ship, their last crew, their last breath. The eternal dawn floated in space, ignored by the galaxy, dismissed as irrelevant. But deep inside its battered hull, a weapon waited. A weapon built from grief and rage and the dying wish of a brilliant woman in a burning city. Soon, the stars would burn. And the harvesters would learn what it truly meant to make an enemy of humanity. The harvester came without warning. One moment, the space above the assembly's capital world was empty. The next moment, reality itself seemed to tear open like wet paper, and something horrible pushed through. The harvester ship was 50 kilometers wide. Its surface was made of a material that hurt to look at, covered in geometric patterns that seemed to move and shift when you tried to focus on them. It hung in the sky like a nightmare made solid, blocking out the light of the sun. On the surface of the capital world, billions of creatures looked up and felt their blood turn cold. Admiral Park watched from the bridge of the eternal dawn as alarms began to scream across every communication channel. The assembly's emergency broadcasts were filled with panic and fear. Representatives who had laughed at humanity 3 days ago were now crying for help. Planetary defense grid is engaging, Commander Ko reported, her voice steady despite the horror on the screen. They are firing everything they have. Missiles streaked toward the harvester. Energy beams bright enough to blind crossed the void. Thousands of weapons, representing the combined firepower of 100 species, struck the nightmare ship. The harvester did not even slow down. Its shields absorbed everything without effort. The attacks that had seemed so impressive moments ago now looked like children throwing pebbles at a mountain. The alien fleet is launching, Ensign Beak announced. Over 2,000 ships from the allied species. They are moving to engage. Park watched the fleet form up on his tactical display. Beautiful warships with advanced weapons. Massive dreadnoughts that could destroy moons. Fast attack vessels and heavy carriers and everything the galaxy had to offer. Against the Harvester, they looked like toys. The battle began. And it was not really a battle at all. It was a massacre. The Harvester extended tendrils of dark energy that reached across space and touched the attacking ships. Each touch meant death. Vessels that had taken years to build were torn apart in seconds. Shields that were supposed to be unbreakable shattered like glass. Valorian flagship destroyed, KO reported. Kryn battle group in full retreat. 17 allied ships gone in the first 2 minutes. On the planet below, the killing had begun. The Harvester sent down smaller machines, each one the size of a building, that began to systematically destroy everything. Cities that had stood for thousands of years were reduced to rubble in hours. Billions of lives ended in fire and pain. The Harvester is not even using its main weapons, Captain Sumwu observed quietly. He had come to the bridge to watch the destruction. It is playing with them. Yes, Park agreed. It knows nothing here can hurt it. So it takes its time. It enjoys the fear. Lieutenant Yunhe entered the bridge, her face pale but determined. Admiral, the Stellar Conversion Core is ready. We can fire at any time. Park nodded but did not give the order. Not yet. He watched the alien fleet continue to die. He watched the planet below burn. He felt nothing but cold patience. Sir, Ensign Beak said suddenly, we are receiving a communication. It is Ambassador Torval of the Valorians. Put it through. The main screen flickered, and Torval's face appeared. He looked very different from 3 days ago. His large eyes were wide with terror. His shiny black skin was dull and cracked. Behind him, his ship was falling apart, with fires burning and sparks flying. Admiral Park. Torval's voice was desperate. Please, you must help us. Park said nothing. He simply watched. We were wrong. Torval continued, almost screaming. We were fools. I am sorry. I am so sorry for what we said, for what we did. Please, your ship, we have been watching the energy readings. There is something inside it, something powerful. Please, you have to help us. Park leaned forward slightly. What do you offer in return? Anything. Everything. Take whatever you want. Resources, territory, our entire empire if you demand it. Just please, please help us. For a long moment, Park was silent. On the tactical display, more ships died. On the planet below, more cities burned. The Harvester continued its slow, terrible work, unmoved by any attack. 3 days ago, Park said finally, you told me that humanity was a dead species, that we were children playing with fire, that the Harvesters had simply cleaned up the mess. Torval flinched. I was wrong. I was a fool. Please, Admiral, I am begging you. You watched our planet die. You had the power to help us, and you chose to laugh instead. Billions of my people died while you made jokes. I know, and I am sorry. I am more sorry than you can imagine. Park studied the alien ambassador for a long moment. I do not want your territory, Ambassador. I do not want your resources. I want something else. What? Name it. I want you to remember this moment. Remember exactly how you feel right now. Remember the fear. Remember the helplessness. Remember watching your world burn while someone who could help you does nothing. Park's voice was hard as iron. That is what you watched happen to us. That is what you laughed at. He cut the communication channel. The bridge was silent. Commander Ko looked at the Admiral with uncertain eyes. Sir, What are your orders? Park stood up from his command chair. He looked at his crew, the last survivors of Earth, the final remnants of humanity. 12 people against a nightmare that had destroyed civilizations for 10,000 years. I am not going to let them die, he said quietly. I am not like them. I am not capable of watching genocide and doing nothing. Relief flooded the faces of his crew, but I wanted Torvald to feel it. Just for a moment. I wanted him to understand what we felt when Earth burned. Park straightened his uniform. Helm, set course for the Harvester. All hands, prepare for battle. The Eternal Dawn began to move. Its old engines fired with a sound like thunder, pushing the battered ship toward the nightmare in the sky. Sir, the Harvester has noticed us, Beak reported. It is scanning our ship. Good. Let it scan. Let it see what we have brought. On the tactical display, the Harvester turned its attention away from the dying fleet. Something had caught its interest. This tiny human vessel, this insignificant speck of metal, was different from everything else it had encountered. Deep inside its alien intelligence, something like curiosity stirred. And for the first time in 10,000 years, something like caution. The stellar conversion core in the heart of the Eternal Dawn was reaching full power. Energy readings that should have been impossible were pouring from the little ship. The Harvester's sensors detected something they had never detected before, a weapon that used stars themselves as ammunition. The Harvester is changing course, Ko reported. It is moving to intercept us directly. Park smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had lost everything and found something more valuable than life. Then we have its attention. That is all we need. The Eternal Dawn flew toward the monster, alone and small and burning with terrible purpose. Behind it, the survivors of the alien fleet watched in confusion. What was this broken human ship doing? Why was it attacking something that could destroy worlds? They did not understand yet, but they would. Very soon, they would understand everything. The plan was beautiful in its simplicity. It was also completely insane. For 10,000 years, the Harvesters had eaten planets. They cracked worlds open like eggs and consumed their cores for energy. Nothing in the known universe could stop them. Their shields deflected everything. Their weapons destroyed everything. They were perfect killing machines, but they had never met a species crazy enough to weaponize a star. Lieutenant Yoon Hana stood at her station in the engineering bay, her hands moving across controls that glowed with power. The stellar conversion core was singing, a deep vibration that she could feel in her bones. It was ready. The weapon that Dr. Nam Yoonji had imagined in her final moments was ready to fire. Position check. Admiral Park's voice came through the communication system. Are we in the right place? Hana looked at her calculations one more time. The math had to be perfect. They were using the capital world sun as a weapon, and that required being in exactly the right spot in space. Too close, and they would be caught in the blast. Too far, and the attack would miss. Position confirmed, she reported. We are at the optimal firing point. The star is directly behind us. Stellar conversion system status? Fully charged and stable. We can fire on your command. In the secret chamber, Captain Sunwoo watched the core pulse with blue light. The equations Dr. Nam had sent them were now made real, transformed from numbers. On a screen to a machine that could change the fate of the galaxy. The principle was not complicated to understand, even if it was impossible to build. Stars were held together by gravity, a constant battle between the force pushing outward and the force pulling inward. With the right gravitational pulse, aimed at the right point, you could make that balance tip for just a moment. The result would be a solar flare unlike anything nature had ever produced. A focused beam of stellar fire, hot enough to burn through any material, powerful enough to cross the void of space itself. A finger of God reaching out to touch something and erase it from existence. The harvester is accelerating toward us, Commander KO reported from the bridge. It is powering weapons. How long until it reaches firing range? Park asked. 30 seconds. Time until we have a clear shot? Ensign Beak checked her calculations. 25 seconds to optimal firing position. 5 seconds to spare. We can do this. The harvester had finally recognized the danger. It's alien intelligence, whatever. It was understood that this tiny human ship was not like the others. It carried something new, something threatening. For the first time in thousands of years, the harvester was moving to destroy a target not out of hunger, but out of fear. The monster's weapons began to charge. Energy readings spiked across every sensor on the Eternal Dawn. The attack that was coming would be enough to crack a moon in half. 20 seconds to firing position, Beak announced. The harvester is locking weapons on us. Park gripped his command chair. All hands, brace for impact. We need to survive long enough to fire. 15 seconds. The harvester released its first attack. A beam of dark energy crossed the distance between them in an instant, striking the Eternal Dawn shields. The ship screamed. Metal twisted. Systems overloaded and exploded in showers of sparks. Hull breach on deck 4, Kaio shouted. Casualties reported. Shields at 40%. 10 seconds. Another attack. The ship shook so hard that Hana was thrown against her console. Blood ran down her face from a cut above her eye, but she did not leave her station. Her hands kept moving, keeping the stellar conversion core stable. Shields at 20%. We cannot take another hit. 5 seconds. In the engineering bay, Hana thought about her family, her mother's garden, her father's laugh, her brother's dreams of becoming an astronaut. All gone. All turned to ash because the harvesters had come and the galaxy had done nothing. This was for them. For Earth. For 8 billion people who had died while the universe watched and laughed. Firing solution achieved. Beak's voice cracked with emotion. We have the shot. The harvester's main weapon charged for the killing blow. A being powerful enough to destroy the Eternal Dawn completely, to wipe the last humans from existence. Admiral Park did not hesitate. Fire! Hana pressed the activation key. In the secret chamber, the stellar conversion core released its energy, but the energy did not go forward. Instead, it went backward, toward the sun behind them. A gravitational pulse, invisible to the eye but devastating in its power, crossed the distance to the star in less than a second. And the sun woke up angry. The surface of the star rippled. Its corona twisted and bulged. Magnetic fields that had been stable for billions of years suddenly went insane. And from the heart of the sun, a tendril of fire emerged. It was not a normal solar flare. It was focused, directed, aimed. A spear of stellar fire lanced across space at the speed of light. 100 million degrees of plasma, concentrated into a beam narrower than a city block, but carrying more energy than 1,000 nuclear bombs. The harvester's shields were designed to stop missiles. They were designed to stop energy weapons. They were designed to stop anything that could be built by technology. They were not designed to stop a star. The beam hit the harvester, and everything changed. The nightmare machine's shields did not fail. They simply ceased to exist, overwhelmed by energies beyond their ability to process. The hull underneath, made of materials that had survived 10,000 years of warfare, began to glow, then to melt, then to vaporize. The harvester did not explode. It sublimated. In less than a second, 50 kilometers of alien death machine turned into a cloud of atoms, scattered across the void by the fury of a burning sun. One moment, the monster was there. The next moment, there was nothing but empty space and fading light. On the Eternal Dawn, The crew stared at their screens in disbelief. The ship was badly damaged. Fires burned in 3 compartments. A dozen people were injured, but they were alive. And the harvester was dead. Confirmed kill, Ko whispered. Her voice shook. The harvester is destroyed. Completely destroyed. Silence on the bridge. Then Ensign Beak began to cry, tears running down her young face. She was not crying from sadness. She was crying because for the first time since Earth fell, she believed humanity might survive. In the engineering bay, Hana slumped against her console. Blood still dripped from the cut on her face, mixing with tears she had not allowed herself to shed in 3 years. "We did it, Mom," she whispered. "We burned them. We finally burned them." Across the solar system, the survivors of the alien fleet watched in stunned silence. The harvester, the invincible monster that had destroyed their combined forces like they were nothing, had been killed by a single human ship. A broken, ugly, insignificant human ship. Ambassador Torval, still alive on his damaged vessel, fell to his knees. His mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. He had no words for what he had just witnessed. On the planet below, the killing machines sent by the harvester stopped moving. Without their mothership, they were nothing but dead metal. The destruction ended. The fires still burned, but no new ones started. Billions of creatures looked up at the sky and saw something impossible. The nightmare was over. The monster was dead, and floating among the stars, damaged but unbroken. The eternal dawn stood as proof that humanity was not extinct. Admiral Park finally allowed himself to breathe. His hands were shaking. His heart was pounding. But his voice was steady when he spoke. "All hands, damage report. Begin emergency repairs." He paused. "And someone tell the ambassador that we will accept his apology now." For the first time in 3 years, Park smiled. The galaxy had laughed at humanity's last ship. No one was laughing anymore. The Galactic Assembly Hall was quiet when the humans entered for the second time. No laughter. No clicking mandibles. No sounds of alien amusement. The 1,000 representatives from across the galaxy sat in complete silence, watching Admiral Park. Dohyun walked to the speaker's platform with something that looked very much like fear in their eyes. Park looked different from a week ago. His arm was in a sling. Burns marked the side of his face. His uniform was torn and patched, but he walked with his back straight and his head high, like a man who had fought a god and won. Behind him walked his crew, the 12 survivors of Earth who had done the impossible. Lieutenant Yunhana still had bandages on her forehead. Ensign Baek Jiang moved with a limp from an injury she received during the battle. Captain Choi Sunwoo and Commander Ko Yuri flanked the Admiral like soldiers of old. They looked broken. They looked exhausted. They looked like people who had nothing left to lose. They looked terrifying. Park reached the platform and looked out at the assembled species. He saw Ambassador Torval sitting in the front row, his large eyes fixed on the floor in shame. He saw the Kryn representatives, who had threatened to destroy the Eternal Dawn just days ago. He saw Grand Scholar Illith, watching with her ancient wise eyes. "Earth is gone," Park said. His voice echoed in the silent hall. "Our planet is ash. Our people are scattered across the void like seeds in the wind. We have one ship that is held together by the determination of our engineers and the prayers of our dead." He paused, letting the words sink in. "But we also have something else now. We have proof that the harvesters are not invincible. We have shown the galaxy that these monsters can die." His eyes swept across the room. "And we have the weapon that killed one." The silence deepened. Representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The weapon that the humans had used was something new, something that changed the balance of power in ways they were still trying to understand. "You watched us die," Park continued. "When the harvesters came to Earth, you did nothing. Some of you even laughed. You thought we were primitives who deserved what happened to us. Ambassador Torval flinched but did not look up. I could hate you for that. Part of me does. Park's voice softened slightly. But hatred is a luxury that neither of us can afford right now. The harvesters are still out there. The one we destroyed was just a scout, a single machine from a fleet that has eaten 1,000 worlds. More will come. And when they do, they will be angry. He stepped forward. So I am offering you something that you do not deserve. I am offering you a chance to stand with humanity. Not because I have forgiven you, but because survival is more important than revenge. Ambassador Torval rose from his seat slowly. The arrogance that had defined him a week ago was completely gone, replaced by something humble and broken. The Valorian Empire offers its deepest apology to humanity, he said, his voice cracking. We were wrong. We were foolish. We were cowards who watched innocents die and did nothing. He bowed his head. We offer alliance, full alliance, whatever. Resources we have, whatever ships remain, they are yours to command. One by one, other species followed. The Kryn stood and made the same offer. Then the neutral archives. Then dozens more. Species that had never spoken to each other now stood together, united by the shared experience of almost dying and being saved by the last ship of a species they had abandoned. When the offers were finished, Grand Scholar Illith approached the platform. She moved slowly, her ancient body creaking with every step. Admiral Park, she said, I have recorded the history of this galaxy for thousands of years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched the harvesters destroy civilizations without number. She paused. But I have never recorded anything like what happened today. Park nodded respectfully. What have you recorded, Scholar? The birth of something new. The harvesters have been the dominant force in this galaxy for 10,000 years. Species lived and died based on whether they were in the path of these monsters. We accepted this as we accept gravity or the speed of light as an unchangeable law of the universe. She looked at Park with eyes that held wonder. Today, humanity proved that law can be broken. You showed us that the harvesters can die. You gave us something we have not had in 10,000 years. What is that? Hope. After the assembly ended, the real work began. Ships from 100 species gathered around the Eternal Dawn. Engineers, who had never spoken to humans before, came aboard to help with repairs. Resources that had been denied now flowed freely. The broken little ship that had made the stars burn became the center of the largest alliance the galaxy had ever seen dot in her quarters. Lieutenant Yunhana sat before her memorial shrine. The photographs of her family looked back at her with frozen smiles. The pressed rose from her mother's garden still sat in its glass container, unchanged. We did it, she told them softly. We made them pay. Not just the harvesters, but all of them. All the species who watched us die and did nothing. She touched the glass gently. They are helping us now. Aliens I never met are working on our ship, repairing systems they do not understand because they are grateful, because they are afraid, because they finally see what humanity is capable of. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I wish you could see it. I wish you could see the look in their eyes when they talk to us now. Not mockery, not contempt, respect, even fear. She laughed softly. Father would have said something wise about forgiveness. Mother would have made them all tea and told them stories. Little brother would have asked to see their ships. She wiped her eyes. I am not as good as you. I cannot forgive them completely, not yet, but I can work beside them. I can teach them what we know. I can help them survive what is coming. She stood up. That will have to be enough. On the observation deck, Captain Sunwoo found Ensign Beak staring out at the stars. The young woman looked exhausted but peaceful. What are you thinking about? Sunwoo asked. Beak considered the question. I am thinking about what happens next. We killed one harvester, but there are more, many more. The war is just beginning. Does that frighten you? Yes, she smiled slightly, but it also makes me feel alive. For so long, we were running and hiding and hoping they would not find us. Now we are fighting back. Now we have a chance. Sunwoo nodded. That is what they never understood about humanity. They laughed at us because we had one ship. They thought our weakness was in our numbers. What is our strength? Stubbornness. The refusal to accept that anything is impossible. The willingness to fight even when we cannot win. Sunwoo looked out at the gathered fleet. The harvesters have been killing for 10,000 years. They thought they knew everything about death. But they never met a species that would rather die fighting than live on its knees. Admiral Park joined them at the window. He stood in silence for a moment, watching the ships from dozens of species moving around the eternal dawn. The scholar asked me what happens now, he said finally. I told her we rebuild. We teach others what we have learned. We prepare for the war that is coming. And when the harvesters come again? Beak asked. Park smiled. It was not a happy smile, but it was not a sad one either. It was the smile of a man who had found purpose in the darkness. Then we make them remember why they should have left us alone. We show them that humanity is not prey. We are the species that learn to make stars burn. The eternal dawn hung in space, surrounded by allies who had once been enemies. Its hull was still patched and ugly. Its engines were still old and mismatched. But it carried something more valuable than any weapon. It carried the future of humanity, and the hope of a galaxy that had finally learned to stop laughing and start fighting. The stars burned bright against the void. And for the first time in 3 years, they seemed to burn for humanity, not as a funeral pyre, as a promise. We are still here. We will always be here. And we will never, ever give up. That is what it means to be human.